I am a stubborn, prideful, and spite-filled person, which makes this video very hard to make. I haven't felt so much fear and anxiety of the unknown in so long, but at the same time it's exciting and so relieving. I can't keep holding back to what I've been feeling for a while, and with the decade starting, it's now or never. Let's start from the beginning. 2009. I was in middle school. My friend comes up to me with a new manga in her hands, asking me to read it so we can roleplay it together. She shows me the cover. Axis Powers Hetalia, Volume 1. She shows me a couple pages before the bell rings, asking me to watch the anime at home and tell her what I think. I end up forgetting to, and carry on with my daily routine of hanging out on iScribble for a couple hours instead. I start seeing usernames with countries pop up, and I wonder what the heck's going on. I browse DeviantArt, now with advertisements of the new anime dub of Axis Powers Hetalia coming to DVD. I joke to my online friends about how I keep seeing this Hetalia stuff floating around, and eventually move on to YouTube to distract myself from homework. After a couple videos of Vocaloid PVs, I see a recommended video for a band version of Vocaloid song I liked. What's this? I was hooked. I had to know what this was. Wait, this was Hetalia? I caved in right then and there, and I tried looking up the anime. Hold on, where are the full episodes? Why are they only uploaded in parts? What is this, 2007 YouTube anime re-uploads? I go back to school to tell my tale of woe of how I failed to watch the anime, for my friend to then tell me they were only 5 minutes long. Haven't heard of that before. Fine then. I finally started to watch it, and then quickly became engulfed into the series. Wow, personified countries with digestible personalities and interesting character dynamics for a 12-year-old? I'm eating this shit right up. Before I knew it, I was obsessed. I drew it, I roleplayed it, I cosplayed it, I collected it. I did everything. At first, I free-shipped anyone and everyone together. World X World, as they called it. It was 2010, who fucking cares? Believe it or not, Spain x Romano was the first OTP from the show. Romano was even my first cosplay. I frequently went to conventions and non-convention Hetalia meetups around the Bay Area. Man, those meetups. Let's just say, I'm so fucking grateful that any older fan put up with my young, annoying ass. If you think cringe culture is dead, you'd be glad it exists just because of the shit I did back in the day. Fun fact, my first kiss was at one of those meetups while I was cosplaying Romano in a game of Spin the Bottle, and I will not admit to anything else besides that. I'm so goddamn embarrassed at my inexcusable behavior back then, but to be fair to myself, I was so fucking happy. A memory I will never fucking forget was at Fandom 2011. I went to the scheduled Hetalia meetup of that day, cosplaying as Romano, of course. When I arrived, there were so many people there, we had to move to an area off-site to continue the meetup. The leads decided to camp around the infamous Fandom snake poop statue, where cosplayers would climb it and take fun photos. For the last group shot of that meetup, we all climbed the statue and posed around it. I remember one America cosplayer who took the highest spot, of course, and started singing the Marukaite Chikyuu song. An Italy cosplayer next to them started to sing along too, and soon enough, everyone was singing. No one had shame back then. I didn't know much of the lyrics back then, and I was still climbing the statue when this was happening. And then, during one of the last verses, the America cosplayer lended a hand to me to help me up. When I got pulled up and sat next to them, they encouraged me to sing along, and I remember shyly belting the last lyric with everyone. When I looked around, everyone was cheering and clapping. The sheer, shameless fun we were having on top of that snake statue was enough to translate to bystanders of the passion and love we had for the series. It was one of the purest moments of my life, and I will cherish that memory forever. To be honest, even though I want to forget most of the cringy things I did in those first few years I was into Hetalia, I never want to forget the way it made me feel. I think those were the happiest years of my life. Just a kid who unabashedly loved being in their fandom. Fast forward a bit, I found out that I liked USUK so much better than Spamano. So much so that I started to like it even more than the series itself. I considered it its own sub-fandom. I was in so deep. This is where it all really started. Not to be emo or anything, but my high school years weren't the worst, but they also weren't the best. I dealt with a lot of high school issues that my love for Hetalia and USUK would eventually help me cope with. Not in the most healthy way, but it got me through it. More on that in a minute. One day, when I was decorating my room with my fast-growing collection of Hetalia prints and merchandise, my aunts walked in and commented on it. One of them asked, "Is this your new phase?" And the other added, "You'll get over it." For some reason, I felt like they were mocking me, invalidating the happiness the series gave me, and implying that it was all for naught. Out of spite, I vowed that day to keep that fire burning inside of me for as long as I could, because my days had become so much brighter because of it that the least I could do was invest my entire life into it. When the hype for Hetalia started to taper down, that's when Homestuck came around. My friends that I've made through the series, that I've spent every waking hour online and offline with, started to drift apart. We didn't talk about our love for Hetalia anymore. All they wanted to do was rave on about Homestuck this, Homestuck that. I tried to be supportive, but I wasn't into that kind of stuff. I liked Hetalia and only Hetalia. If I tried concentrating on something else, Hetalia would just fade, just like my friends were doing. They were moving on. And I didn't want that. I wanted my friends back. I pretended to be into Homestuck for a hot minute, feeding into their new passions, but I could only fake it for so long until I eventually had to let them go. I didn't want to let go of Hetalia yet. I couldn't. It seems dramatic, really, choosing a fandom over friends, but that's how dedicated I was. That's how deep I was. I became lonely. I attempted to build new friendships, but the thought of them not being as dedicated for the long haul as I am ate away at the back of my mind, and I couldn't hold any friendships for long. I met so many amazing and talented people through USUK, and I consumed so many magical videos and art and everything from them, but I just kept cycling through them like recyclable paper. I was ashamed because I lost the ability to hold stable friendships. I got jealous with those with tight friend groups because I could never have that. So my friend group was instead simply the entire fandom. So when older fandom icons would announce that they were moving on from Hetalia, I was confused. I was genuinely upset because I was over here giving all my attention and energy into my fandom, choosing it over school and family, and for older fans to just move on because of adult responsibilities or leave the fandom because of petty internet drama, it confused me to the point of frustration. Why would you leave such an amazing community over work or real-life obligations? What's more important than this? Looking back now, I realize as I'm saying this stuff out loud, my obsession was so unhealthy. I was happy, yes, but I was also so unnecessarily angry at things my teenage mind couldn't comprehend at the time. Remembering how I felt at that time period doesn't make me regret it. To be honest, I understand that kids' frustrations to this day. Not saying it's okay, just validating those feelings because it happens. I clung onto whatever was left of the fandom at that time. I supported the fuck out of anyone that stayed and welcomed anyone who just arrived. I wasn't a gatekeeper, but more like the valet parking guy or the bellboy who carried your bags to your hotel room. And I'm still like that to this day. I cherished every person who chose to stay at my hotel. And after a few years of facing the reality that people would eventually have to check out, I accepted it, though I still have trouble mourning. That's skipping ahead of the story a bit. We are still in the age-old era of 2012. Tumblr was still my home site, and at this point in the timeline, I had a few Ask blogs that I adminned. Interacting with others' muses was so much fun. I liked sharing that unique creative outlet with similar people whom I could immediately be friends with. I didn't interact with much, but the few people I did were great. This was the time when 2P Hetalia was super popular, and I knew of the people who semi-created the personalities of the characters we know of today. This also includes non-2P Ask blog admins too. All of the AU creators were my idols at that time. At this point, I didn't have any issues with my mental health. I was completely oblivious, just enjoying fandom life with other people who did the same. December 7th, 2012. To the followers of Tumblr user Undertale and the Ask 2P France blog. Jessie Winterhaller, 19, tragically passed away when she was hit by a car in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was riding in a car with 3 friends when 2 of them started fighting. One asked the driver to pull over, and she got out of the car. Jessie went after her and was struck. A news channel clip covering the accident was released shortly afterward. The news spread around the community. Updates about the family and friends were being shared as posts of shock were being made. When the news made its way to me, I couldn't comprehend it. I didn't know her personally, nor have I interacted with her friend circle, but for some reason, I cried for days. I posted journals about my condolences with tears in my eyes. I couldn't see or walk straight for a week. Every day, for the first time, I begged the universe to switch me out for Jessie. I pleaded for time to be reversed and for me to be in that news headline instead of her. My chest was so tight that it became numb, and every time I finally felt it, I thought maybe if I walked in front of a car right now that somehow it would bring her back. I felt selfish for having so much sorrow for someone I didn't know, but I think because I gave so much of myself to this community that such a big loss as this one made me feel like I lost a family member. I didn't want to upset any of Jessie's close friends or family, so I didn't share my feelings besides open letters on my personal accounts about my experience. I didn't think it was my place. I really hate to make this about me, but I don't feel like it's my place to cover this subject besides my side of the story. My deepest condolences go out to those affected. My mental health was never the same after that. Around that time, my high school friends were studying for their driver's license, and my mind couldn't let myself look at the manuals. I unconsciously refused to learn how to drive because I didn't want to be responsible for an unfortunate accident resulting in someone's life. And I was convinced that if I started driving, it would eventually happen because I didn't have confidence in myself. I still can't drive to this day, but I'm getting better. My obsession with Hetalia didn't improve. Remember when I mentioned that Hetalia helped me cope with my teenage problems? Well, one of which being with my childhood relationship with food. My family didn't provide me with many meals, and I almost never got lunch at school. I distinctly remember scavenging my friends' lunches every day for leftovers because I didn't eat. It became a daily tradition to share their extras with me because of it. But here's the kicker. Instead of providing food at home, sometimes my family would give me wads of cash to buy lunch. I was starving almost every lunch period. My tummy would growl so loud during class that I would get in trouble. But you know what I did with that money? I saved it. For what? So I could go to conventions and buy any Hetalia merch I could find. My parents would never buy me those kinds of things, but there's this tick inside of me that craved collecting merch more than feeding myself. Since people said the fandom was dying, I felt like it would all go away one day, so I had to collect all I could. But I also needed to have the best Hetalia collection of all time. I had to one-up every Hetalia shrine I saw overseas in Japan, so I hoarded cash to splurge literally hundreds of dollars on merchandise. Every time I updated my shrines, I would get a wave of serotonin that encouraged me to continue feeding into my desires. I was dealing with so much teenage angst that the one thing that made me the happiest in life was fandom stuff. Hetalia was my light at the end of the tunnel. I would eventually get over that unhealthy mindset once high school ended, but for a while there, I was consumed by it. I don't know why. Besides my physical need to be surrounded by things I liked, I buried myself shoulders deep into creating digital art for my fandom. This was the more lighthearted side of things. I had been drawing practically all my life, so it only made sense that art was the way to go. I contributed my stories and ideas to the world, and most of you know me because of this reason. I don't have to cover too much of it because the history is on my channel and on my social medias. So, to save you some time, just know I put my heart and soul into every single one of those videos and art pieces. There wasn't a day that went by without me thinking of a new project that I wanted to work on, or new scenarios for scenes I wanted to make. It's all I ever wanted to do, and I did it. And I'm genuinely proud of what I've accomplished thus far, and I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who also enjoyed what I've done. It means the world to me that my silly art projects made a difference somehow in some silly way. But truly, thank you. Knowing how much impact I could potentially make from my art, I decided to take it one step further and refine my skills through art college. Literally, the only reason why I even applied was to get better at making YouTube videos and US UK art projects. If you think that's crazy, it is. I was fully aware that sending in my portfolio with almost exclusively US UK fan art was weird and unconventional. But alas, I got in. I studied for a degree in 2D animation and game design. Say what you want about the college or my stubborn ass. Follow your dreams, no matter how big they are, kids. I didn't mention this because it's not too terribly Hetalia related, but I got kicked out of high school. It was a big event in my life that I eventually want to go into detail about in a Draw My Life video one day. But just know, it fucked me up really bad that I never got to graduate. I was forced to get my GED through means I didn't enjoy at all. But I had to, so I could be able to go to college somehow. Just a little backstory to show how much I wanted to pursue making things for my OTP. I went through a couple tiny hyperfixations through my schooling life, but none of them overtook the #1 spot in my life that is Hetalia. I remember walking down the halls, hearing other students reminisce about the old days when they were obsessed with personified countries. Little did they know, I planned to die on this hill that I settled on. But as I was getting closer to the whole adulthood era of my life, I remembered those other fans who moved on around my current age. I was starting to question if my time was coming up. I've never considered leaving the fandom in the 5+ years I've been into it. Until Undertale came along. Undertale came in at a pivotal time in my life. I was getting a degree in college, I was starting to go by different pronouns and pursue a whole new identity. So, why wouldn't I also change fandoms, right? The Undertale craze hit me like a brick. It gave me the same emotions and feelings Hetalia did when I first came into it. I dove deep into this new world the same way I did before. I drew it, I cosplayed it, I collected it. Not as intense, since I was a broke art college student, mind you. But I was balls deep into this new hyperfixation. There was this moment that almost broke me. Fanime, 2016. There was this Undertale meetup that I cosplayed Asriel at. The energy that meetup had was the same energy that one Hetalia meetup from 2011 had. Everyone was so excited about this new fandom, and there was so much fun and passion being thrown around that it was hard not to get sucked into. I wanted to be engulfed by this nostalgic feeling for just a little longer. It was the first time I ever seriously considered moving on. There is only so much you can contribute to a fandom that people consider to be dead or dying. And there's only so much you can do to hold it up and keep it alive. But when you are seemingly the main source of content for a sub-fandom, it gets tiring. I wanted something new, a fresh start. But those moments of how upset and angry I was 5+ years ago came flooding back to the forefront of my mind. Why would you do this? Why leave something behind that meant so much to you? Do you not care about the impact this fandom has made on your life anymore? Does that shit mean nothing? I was too afraid to pull the trigger. I didn't want to become the person I hated back in high school. I didn't want to disappoint anyone or leave the fandom to die. I couldn't let such a beautiful thing disappear. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Unfortunately, I dropped out of college for the same reasons I got kicked out of high school. I didn't learn much in college, but I at least improved a little, so that's good. Fast forward some more life events. A few heartbreaks, coming out as trans, moving across the country, getting surgery, building my animal family and my career, and here we are. Current times. You're probably wondering why I even recapped on my Hetalia fandom history, and if it has to do with anything related to the title. Well, as everyone is very well aware, I've been going through some tough adult times. I've dealt with my fair share of responsibilities and the like, and as I've tried to understand the life that is being an adult, I think I finally realized something important that I missed as a kid. When my aunts mocked me for having a phase, I thought they were being hypocrites because they used to be super into Sailor Moon when they were young, and they still semi-enjoy it to this day, even if it's not their whole entire life. So I thought maybe Hetalia was going to be my Sailor Moon. My ADHD won't allow me to concentrate on multiple things at the same time with the same intensity as I do with Hetalia. But as my years go by, I realize I'm only in my 20s for a limited amount of time. And with the new decade starting, I thought it would be symbolic to start it how I ended my last decade, with something new. In December, I saw Promare for the first time. I've always loved Studio Trigger, and I don't watch any anime anymore besides select shows from them. Keys and Iver, Space Patrol Luluko, and now Promare. When I watched it in theaters, it rocked my world the same way Undertale did. But this time, instantly. Before I even watched the movie, I knew it would be my new hyperfixation, but I didn't know just how much it would actually change my life. The style, the dynamics, the colors, the characters, the story arcs, the symbolism, the animation, everything was my cup of tea, and I sipped it all up as if I was quenched for years. It was beautiful and I cannot recommend it enough. If you haven't seen it yet, I won't spoil it, but I will say Galileo is literally what I wanted from USUK, but on another level. You can only draw the same two white blonde boys for so long until you crave something more unique. That's what I got out of Promare. I loved every second of every frame of it, and I think after all these years debating and contemplating with myself, that's what pushed me over the edge. I fought for my spot in this fandom. I contributed all I wanted for this fandom. I built up my reputation for so many years in this fandom, even though some days I felt like I didn't deserve it, or that I was too hyped up to live up to the name everyone gave me. But looking back, I'm still proud of what I've achieved and created, no matter how silly or insignificant those things were to some people. To be honest, when I made Dearest Masterpiece, it felt like the final love letter to my fandom. It was like the graduation I never had. I put all of my arcs and love and passion into that video, put it into a pretty little bow, and sent it off. Even though I have a million more ideas for AUs and projects for USUK, there's only so much you can do before it gets stale. Near the tail end of my years, I realized I only really did it because I was good at it, because that's what people expected of me. I was happy to do it, but was I having fun? If I'm going to sit in front of a computer for hours on end, I want to do it for a damn good reason. As a kid, it made sense, but as an adult, I don't need to escape into someone else's world anymore. I want to engulf myself in something truly and utterly self-indulgent, something that can make the same impact but 100% my own. I don't want to admit what I'm about to say because I know past me would have been disappointed. But I thought maybe if I explained myself a little more, I would like to think that kid back then would have understood. Usually, people with fandom clout have two outcomes. One, they start to make original work and they eventually die off the map. Or two, they start to make original work and they become more successful than they ever were in a fandom. I've noticed that outcome number one was more common, and that made me terrified. So, on and off, I've been working super hard to perfect something that I've been wanting to release since the beginning of high school so that it had the best chance of gaining momentum. Originally, it was based in the same universe as Hetalia, but over the years it has evolved into something so much more, and I can officially say that I'm finally proud of it, and I'm ready to reveal it. I wasn't prepared for all these years because of that underlying fear of losing any reputation, and my hyperfixation with my current fandom wouldn't allow it at the time. I've decided that if I can only concentrate on one thing per decade, then I had to go all in. So, as an homage to Hetalia and to celebrate a fresh start to new beginnings, I want to reveal the title of my new web series. But before that, I want to highlight some people who are still kicking it in the USUK sub-fandom. I want to thank you guys for still sticking to your guns and hand you the keys to the hotel that is USUK and Hetalia. Even if you guys eventually decide to graduate one day, I wanted to give you this special thanks for making my last few moments well worth experiencing for. May you bring more content and joy for future generations to come. If you're wondering what I'm going to do with all of my USUK/Hetalia merch for now, I'm either going to mail it off to those on my list or keep some of it for the memories. I'm still proud of my Ida bags and my shrine, so they will stay up for as long as possible. As for my future, just know that I'm not saying I will never draw USUK or Hetalia again, but I am going to focus on my web series 1000%, which means I will probably not have time to do anything else. Alright, I know you're waiting for me to say it, so I guess now's the time, huh? No more beating around the bush. So here we go. Today is the day I finally move on from the Hetalia fandom. Thank you to everyone who has supported me thus far and will continue to support me on my new journey. I can't express how much it means to me that so many of you want to see me grow, and I hope I can make you proud. So, thank you so much. From the bottom of my huge heart, thank you. Here's to a fantastic 2020.